Today, we're going to talk about the worst things you can do in your art journal and what to do about them. The first worst thing you can do in your art journal is to not experiment. This little journal is just a bunch of watercolor paper folded in half. I put 2 hole punches and put a ribbon through it, tied it up, and that's all I did. And this was an experimental journal. So this is a collage, clearly. And I loved this quote. It starts innocently enough, because honestly, once you start journaling, or art journaling, visual journaling, mixed media journaling, junk journaling, whatever you want to call it, I think you'll be hooked. So the worst thing you can do is to not experiment and not try things out. So this is where I put some tape down and I rolled some color, some paint over top of it. This whole thing is a big experiment. This is me with some writing. We made an ombre background. This is making a pocket. So this whole journal, this was using some crayon and some watercolor as a resist. This is making a background with ripped out book pages and then coloring over and using some stencils on top of it. The whole journal was an experiment, and it might not have been perfect. I might not have loved every minute of it, but I played. What can you do to make it better? Be willing to open up your journal and play. Pull out any materials that you haven't really experienced before. Just see what they do. You can make your own journal to do this with, and if you don't like something, paint or gesso will cover it up. Another one of the worst things you can do in your journal is to expect perfection. Perfection is the joy killer. This was one amongst my first art journals. These were magazine pages. I just found things I liked, like these rocks, this little poem by Mary Oliver, some cards I had received. This was a collage and Sharpie paint pen over top of it. And is this perfect? It is not. But I just played. I just took things that I thought were interesting and put them in my journal. This fish was about prosperity. I had this old paper and I just glued it down. Again, I used those Sharpie paint pens over top of the fish to change it a little. I glued in pockets. I tried doing flip outs. This was a card somebody gave me. Tabs I tried to make. Some more collages with art pens that I tried to change what the collage looked like by painting over top of it. So all of this is markings that I made. These are quotes I liked from books I liked. So expecting perfection. This was far from perfect. You can see the painting wasn't perfect. I had no idea what I was doing, and I just glued stuff in. So I let go of it, and I just did what felt right to me, and that's how I got started art journaling. I let go of the need for perfection. I let go of the need of having perfect lines or making perfect marks. I just played. Letting go of perfection is huge. What can you do? Just get going. Take anything you've got, use it, and get going. The next worst thing that you can do in your journal is to think you need all the things. When I started, so this was some watercolor paper, I folded in half, and all I had was this color paint and this reddish paint, and I think this a yellowish paint. That's all I had. And I had some markers, some magazines, and those Sharpie paint pens. That is how I began. I had nothing else. Thinking that you need all the things, sometimes all the things make it that much more difficult to get journaling. Sometimes, if you have too much to look at, you're overwhelmed, you don't know what to do with it. And all I did here was I took pieces of watercolor paper, I painted them with the colors that I had, and I just played with those things. Realize you don't need all the things. If you have all the things, play with that and take out 1 or 2 things, especially things you haven't used in a while. Take out 1 or 2 things and limit yourself. See what you can come up with and see where your creativity takes you. That's how you can combat thinking that you need all the things. All right, we've already talked about these 3 journals, but the next worst thing you can do is think that you can't afford to do it. Everybody has paper laying around. You could use cast-off paper from printers and just fold them in half and make a journal like this. If you can't afford a journal, fold them in half. Old book pages. If your pages are too thin and you want to thicken them up, you could use some glue, and even Elmer's glue is better than nothing. And thin the Elmer's glue a little bit and glue pages together to make them a little thicker, or collage over top from magazines or things you find in the recycling bin and start thickening up your pages this way. This really isn't that thick of a paper, but it's got paint on either side of it, and it thickens it up a little bit. So you don't need to be able to afford very much. You could use catalogs sometimes, especially there's some that come that are thicker paged. You can use that as a journal. Get going. And the dollar store has a lot of affordable paints and stuff that will do you fine in the beginning. One of the worst mistakes is thinking you can't afford to do it, because you don't have to have a lot of money to get started or get going. And if you want ideas on that, let me know in the comments and I'll help you out. The next worst thing you can do is not to use your handwriting. In this journal, I took a round brush. This is a round brush. This is what a round brush looks like. So I took a big round brush and I wrote big on here. I didn't just write the word big. I just wrote in a large way, and I used my own handwriting for this page. And I kind of love the way this looks. You can't really tell what it says. Here's another one where I used my own handwriting in my journal. Why is this important? Because this makes it you. This makes it part of you. And this is what's important, is putting you, your essence, in the journal. So not using your handwriting is a huge mistake. Whether you love it or hate it, there's ways around it. And if you need those ideas, well, again, let me know in the comments. This is just me using my writing and thickening up each of the letters. I'm not in love with my handwriting, but you should put your own handwriting in your journals, whatever it takes, but get some writing in your journals. The next worst thing you can do is to not include your life in your journal. This year, in 2016, Shine was my word of the year. So this is how I put myself in my journal. I wrote this with my handwriting, again, going back to the last point. But I made this about me. I made this about, I want to shine in the year 2016. So I picked out words that represented shine to me. I put shiny things on here. So that was how I put myself in my journal. I talked about magical thinking, follow your inner GPS. I put all kinds of things that were about me in here. This is a piece of art that I made that was a Zentangle. So not putting things about you in your journals, it makes them impersonal. It's much more personal when you have things in there that you've done or you've made, or it makes it become you. Quotes that you love, you can handwrite them or cut them out of magazines. I love that. Adding tip-ins about what's happened in your life. This is a vision that I had about being grateful. This is about the sea, liking to go to the sea, and a quote that I loved. This was a piece of mail that I got that I loved, this flying hot dog. So I made it a tip-in. Not putting yourself in your journals is the worst thing you can do. Somehow figure out a way that every page is about you, that it has some piece of you in it, that your favorite things, your favorite colors, your favorite whatever is shown on every page. Make it about you. The next worst thing you can do is to not use scraps in your journal. Scraps can be anything, from your recycling bin, things you have left over from things you made. This is a page I made with all scraps of book pages, and then I painted over top of it. And this page became very thick and textured, and I love the way it feels. So scraps can help you a ton because they can thicken up your page and texturize it and make it feel different than your other pages, and it just adds another element. Use scraps in your journal in whatever way. Now, I also make scrap piles. I don't see one on my desk, but I use those in my journals too, wherever it comes from. Your recycling bin, a magazine, some images you find that you like just laying around somewhere. Who knows? Use scraps in your journal. The next worst thing you can do in your journals is to not use your feelings to make journal pages. This is a picture that I made when I was feeling angry. I came home from an incident where I was feeling quite angry, and I splattered all over this page. Now, yes, you might say this is an image of when I was feeling angry, and doesn't it bring up the anger again? No, this is helping me connect to what the anger was and to realize how silly it was. The anger was silly, but this page came out beautiful, and I really love this page because it has my emotions and my feelings in it. So the worst thing you can do is to not include your emotions. How could you do that? You could get crayons and scribble. You could draw scribbly lines. You could be free-flowing. You could splatter. You can splatter paint in big splatters. You could get a huge piece of paper, splatter all over it, and then cut it up and use it as a journal. I say to combat that, use your feelings and look what you might get out of it. The next worst thing you could do is not to have a travel bag or a travel case or a travel journal ready to go at all times. I love to take my journals with me while I'm waiting for people, waiting for appointments. Maybe I am waiting for somebody else to get out of an appointment and I'm sitting in the car. You've got to have a to-go something, a to-go bag, a to-go journal, a to-go book. So this is one I've made. This is a Jane Davenport travel cover. It has an elastic in the middle so you can put travel journals inside of them. And I love this. My aunt happened to gift me this, and I just love the whole journal. So I have these little clips on here. This is a pen clip. You fit your pen in here, and it holds it for you. I have another clip on here just so I have a clip. I have some loose watercolor paper, some paper towel that I keep with me, some glass cleaners, a couple stickers, a couple of these hotel key cards to spread paint. I made this little folder. Oh, here's some scrap. Oh, yep. Here's some scrap piles I've made. And here's some scrap piles. I included those pieces of paper people have sent me. Another scrap pile, another scrap pile. So I've included all these in here so I have them at hand. This is just a writing guide in case I want that. These are some little stencils that actually were Jane Davenport but came in a different something that I got. So I have some stencils in here. I have an actual journal in here ready to go. This is a page I've painted already. So some pages I've painted already. Clips I put in here. This little tiny ruler. There's more stencils. These little pockets, I have some elastics in here. Oh, some index cards. Ooh, I love to bring index cards with me because they save me. Sometimes you just want to write on an index card. You can write ideas and all kinds of stuff. This is scrap from jelly printing. I keep that in here in a tag. And actually, these are small index cards. They're cut in half. And I loved these too. And this is a dot grid card, which I absolutely love too. And then magazine cutouts I shoved in this pocket. Now, I usually have a pen in here. You could bring a glue stick or some tape with you and you're all set. But the worst mistake, in my opinion, that you could make is not having a to-go bag or a to-go journal. You could just as easily use a bag as this. I go between this and a bag that I carry with me. The number one worst thing you can do is to never start journaling. Let's just look at how sad this journal looks. It's empty. And yes, it's a beautiful thing. And a lot of times we get afraid to start in a journal. This is just one of many of my empty journals. But look how sad a journal looks without love and life in it. It's empty. The pages have nothing to tell you. They have nothing to share. They have no warmth. They have no nothing. So the idea is just start journaling somewhere. Make scribbles. Make a mess. Cut out words. Make your own journals. Do whatever you have to do to get some love in your life and in your journal's life. There's nothing that says love to me like a journal that's filled up. And there you have it. Get yourself, make yourself, create yourself a journal and start putting your love, yourself, your marks in the journal. Thanks everybody for being here. I'll see you next week.